Hello everyone, it's Bronte Spicer. How are you all? For those of you who don't know me, I am the author of It's Okay to Cry, and I teach powerful, mindful and self-inquiry tools to parents and teachers so our families can be free of anxiety and depression. So, this video is going to be about why our students or children or even us, why we need more than mindfulness. So it is a really good thing that mindfulness is really prevalent and common and celebrated because it is a beautiful technique to use to support our mental health. And it's also not quite enough for us to process traumatic and distressing memories or experiences that we've had. So mindfulness, if you don't know, is a beautiful practice where we are becoming aware of what is happening in this moment. So a great kind of go-to is to start to notice what sounds you can hear, notice how the air temperature feels on your skin, notice how the clothing feels on your skin, starting to notice what physical sensations you can feel in the body. So it's noticing if there's a scent in the air, if the air is fresh or cool in the room that you're in. So these are all beautiful ways that you can bring your attention to what is happening and noticing what is happening in this moment. Along with mindfulness, breathing techniques can again be very helpful, powerful to return our nervous system and bring our nervous system out of a protective state from the fight flight response or the freeze please response back into this rest digest state, nervous system state, which is on the parasympathetic nervous system pathway. But this is like these techniques are bringing ourselves back to feeling calm, but it's not actually processing those distressing and traumatic experiences that we've had. So I've had a mother come to me before, and her daughter herself, who's been struggling with mental health, with mental illness, with anxiety and depression, she said herself that I can't just keep breathing. So sometimes breathing and practicing basic mindfulness just does not cut it. So the reason why it doesn't cut it is when we have distressing experiences, or when our children or students have distressing experiences or traumatic experiences, they have displaced and dislodged and stored emotional memory from experiences. So I'm just going to explain what trauma is and how this relates to all students, all children in your lives, and also you. So traumatic experiences is when we have an experience where we lose our capacity to cope in the situation. So this means that something distressing has happened, and our body and mind stop being able to cope. And so if you can think of a distressing or when we have a distressing experience, what happens is that our nervous system is overwhelmed by information. So part of this process is called neuroception, where we have sensory receptors in our body, and our body's always picking up signals to check to see if we're in a safe environment. This is called neuroception, where this information about the external environment is being sent up to the brain, and the brain is computing and deciding whether it is safe to be in this space or not. So it's a primal part of our workings. And so what happens is that when we have a distressing experience or a traumatic experience, then we're so overloaded with information and sensory information that the body and the brain can't compute what is happening. And what can happen then in that situation is the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, doesn't do its job properly, and emotional memory can be displaced and unprocessed and not integrated. And so what happens as a result of that is that emotional memory or sensations are stuck in the body, stored in the body as emotional baggage, and that is in essence trauma that's stored and lodged in the body. This then can be bound to, it can bind us into a state of fight, flight, or freeze, please. So those are two of the three nervous system states that our bodies can be in. So the three different nervous system states are rest, digest, which is that calm centered space that we do want to be in, but it's not always possible for us to be in that situation because life happens. And then our two other nervous system states are the fight, flight response, which is more of that agitated, anxious state. So we're in that protection state of we're either fighting or we're running away. And the third nervous system state is the freeze please response, which is more of that shut down, retreat, being submissive, abandoning ourselves, shutting down and withdrawing from the situation or the conversation. So what can happen is that if we don't process these distressing or traumatic experiences, then if our children don't process those traumatic experiences, then their nervous systems can get stuck in either the fight-flight response or the freeze-please response. So that can impact their learning. That can impact their engagement, how they communicate with others, how they connect with themselves, and also their ability to engage in their learning at school. Alongside those distressing experiences that they've had, they've also decided something about themselves. So let's just say they've walked down the hallway at school and someone's called them a loser. So in that moment, they may have decided, and that's an example of a traumatic or distressing experience. And so that person who said that to this student is a threat. So in that moment, this student, their nervous system will have shifted out of the rest digest state and moved into either the fight-flight response or the freeze-please response or accommodation. And in that moment, they also may have decided themselves that they are a loser because this other student has told them that they're a loser. So not only has their nervous system gotten stuck in this nervous system state, they've also decided something about themselves. They've decided that they are deficient in some way, and in this case, they've decided that they're a loser. So by our students just practicing basic mindfulness, it might return them back to a sense of calm, but it does nothing about all this under the surface story that they have about themselves. And so these deficiency stories that our students create about themselves, they have a direct impact on how they communicate with themselves, each other, how they engage in the classroom, and with the world at large. And so what these deficiency stories are underneath the surface is it becomes their identity, becomes their shadow identity. So it's their worst fears, it's where all of their problems are derived from in their life. It can affect their relationships, it can affect their sense of addictions or compulsions in their lives. It can affect how they show up at work. Maybe one of their deficiency stories is that they're not good enough, so they completely go the opposite way and they're a perfectionist and overdrive themselves and they burn themselves out. So that would be more of an driven by anxiety and that fight-flight response. Or it can go the other way and they can feel so hopeless that they can't get out of bed. So mindfulness absolutely is a helpful and powerful tool. And we also need to take our students beyond basic mindfulness and help them process those distressing and traumatic experiences so they can integrate the experience and they can process and integrate the emotional memory and then let go of the negative thought or the deficiency story that they have about themselves. So those strategies, those self-inquiry tools are the tools that I'm going to teach in my free webinar on the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022. How good is that number? So if you are a teacher or even a parent or someone who, or maybe even a teacher's aide, or just someone who's interested in learning more about how to support our students with their mental health and to take our students beyond basic mindfulness and show them how to process distressing memories and distressing experiences, traumatic experiences, then come and join my free webinar. You'll find the link on at brontespicer.com. And if you just go to the School Wellbeing tab, then you'll find free webinar there. So it's at 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so Victorian time, and I would love to see you there. These are the strategies that I wish that I had in when I was in Year 9 and I had depression. These are the strategies that I stumbled across 3 years ago. Thanks, Shannon. It's so lovely to have you here. So this is my book, It's Okay to Cry, and a lot of people are finding great benefit from this and even reading it multiple times because there's all of the techniques I used to overcome my 22 bout of depression are in this book. And they're also the strategies that I teach in my program, Beyond Belief. But if you are a teacher or if you have children in your lives, then come and join this free webinar and I'll show you the techniques and strategies that you can use to support your students and your children to improve their mental health. Have a beautiful day.